Pat was really happy that he got to buy a beautiful new house for half the money that you could get anywhere else. It was just the type of house he loved and in an area that he dreamed of. Prior to finding the property, he spent hours on end looking at property sites and couldn't find anything that suited his budget. Pat used to work very hard in a factory for long hours, but for some reason he seemed to have hardly no money left when it came to paying bills. When he used to be working long hours, the only thing that kept him going was holding on to the hope of finding a property that suited him. He had a feeling one would come along. Then one day, while he was reading the newspaper, that opportunity arose. The next day he was speaking to the real estate agent outside the house. Everything he was telling him sounded perfect. Pat was feeling so lucky, he felt like he was dreaming. He couldn't believe it. There was actually even a swimming pool in the back of the house. He used to love on his downtime to relax by the pool. He hoped he would meet a nice lady and settle down with her and start a family. When Pat was in work these days, he felt a lot happier and much more energetic. He had finally secured the dream of having a property of his own and one of his dreams. His workmates noticed the change in him. They even said it to him. They thought he met a new woman and asked him was that the reason. When he told them about his new property, they couldn't believe it. He could even sense jealousy from some of his workmates. One night, Pat was watching TV and suddenly he smelt smoke. He went into the kitchen to see a huge fire. He quickly got his tablet that was nearby to document the damage to claim fire insurance. He hoped he wouldn't lose his dream house over some stupid fire. Suddenly a page from a newspaper fell in front of him. He picked it up and saw what looked like his house staring right up at him. He read, "Dream house goes on sale after 50 years after a man claims the property is too haunted and dangerous to people live in. 3 people perished in a fire 4 times over the previous 10 years. The owner passed away this month, and with a lot of legal battles, the property finally goes on sale for a fraction of the price it is worth." Pat stopped reading, realizing he was in the middle of a fire. He got a start when he saw 3 people standing in front of him. They didn't seem to be one bit worried about the fire. He screamed at them to get their phone and call the firefighters. One man said to him, "Don't worry about the fire. You had to see that article to break you being dishonest with yourself. We were the same until we got a newspaper piece flying into our face. You are already dead, just like us, but now that you realize it, you can see us." Pat froze in the spot, realizing there was fire all around him, but he felt no pain. Then he looked over, behind the people, and saw himself lying dead on the ground, almost burnt to a crisp. Thanks for watching The Assassin Rapper, and if you want to stay up to date on new content, then please subscribe and be sure to hit the bell to be notified on new content. Thomas was looking forward to go to the cinema on Friday night. There was an exclusive invite only of a new zombie movie at 6, and right away there was a public screening at 8, which he was going to. He was really looking forward to the movie, as it promised to give a new cinema experience never experienced before. Thomas had an early dinner before heading out for the cinema. He finished his meal, then 5 minutes later he was driving to the cinema. He loved going to the cinema since he was a little boy. He knew that he loved the cinema since the very first time he stepped foot inside one. The local cinema was a 20-minute drive for him. He drove a bit faster because he didn't want to miss the start of the movie. He knew they would put on maybe 15 minutes of ads, so that gave him some extra time. When he arrived at the cinema, he went to get his ticket scanned, but was surprised there was a big crowd of people looking very upset. The person behind the counter said, "I'm sorry everyone, the cleaners are still in screen 7. We won't be long more. I'm very sorry for this. It's not cleaned yet." The crowd were growing more and more impatient, as it was now 8 o'clock. Thomas had patience, but this was driving him crazy. He was wondering would the movie be still on, or would he miss the start of it. The crowd were really irritated now with the long wait. He pretended to go to the bathroom, and as he was passing screen 7, he snuck in. He was waiting to be told it wasn't ready by the cleaners, but they didn't say anything. It was almost like the crowd from the premiere didn't even leave yet. It was so dark, it was hard to see. Thomas got out his torch. He always brought to the cinema to find his seat, as he liked it old school instead of using his phone's torch. He screamed when he could see there was a group of what looked like zombies coming for him. He said to himself it must be some sort of fancy dress for the premiere, until the lights came on, and he was then bombarded with the evil, twisted sight of what looked like zombies lying down in the ground in pools of blood. Out in the foyer, the crowd waiting were pleased to hear the man behind the counter say, "Okay everyone, sorry for the delay, but the cleaners have finished now. Ye are free to go into screen 7. Enjoy the movie." The crowd walked in to screen 7, really looking forward to see the movie. All their frustration was gone already, because all they wanted to do was watch the movie and enjoy it. When they went into screen 7, they could hear growling and couldn't register anything else, because that is when they were turned in to zombies. Thanks for watching The Assassin Rapper, and if you want to stay up to date on new content, then please subscribe and be sure to hit the bell to be notified on new content. Martin was shocked when he overheard his sister Mary talking about looking forward to win a tennis tournament. He first thought it was fixed, but when he overheard a conversation with her new weird boyfriend, he was shocked and couldn't believe what he heard. He often heard of different conspiracies, like people in high-paid jobs and very high positions sold their soul to the devil, Illuminati, and all different types of different conspiracies. But when he heard his sister say she was really looking forward to play, knowing she would definitely win and become a champion, it really made him stand up and listen and wonder how did she know she was going to win. He froze behind the door. She said, "I'm really looking forward to win the tournament. I worked so hard to win. Anyway, so it doesn't matter that we're using the help of Satan. Anyway, Satan will appreciate us using his help. Her boyfriend Jack said, Satan will really appreciate you doing this. And believe me, that boxer you saw win a world title the other night, I'm not saying he would have won it without the help of Satan, but he paid great respect to him by letting his power help him. Martin couldn't understand what he was hearing. He wanted to ask his sister, what in the name of God were they talking about? It all seemed so weird and, well, obviously satanic. Martin always was afraid of anything to do with the occult, and it really sent shivers up his spine to think that his own sister, who was sleeping under the same roof as him, could be a Satanist. A few days passed and he had the opportunity to listen to his sister and boyfriend speak again. This time they mentioned a special room in a huge house that her boyfriend lived in. Martin knew that he had to see that room, so he planned and eventually made his way in there. It was a hard plan to come up with and took an awful lot of work, but he did it, and he did it well, and that is the reason why he was able to get inside the room. But when he got in there, it was just an empty room with some sort of table or altar in the front. He heard noise, so quickly hid under the cloth covering the table. He heard voices talking about people getting into positions near the altar, and then they find themselves in that position in real life. By the conversation, he learned that is how the boxer became a champion, how his sister won the tennis championship. They just needed toy trophies or whatever to use, and whatever position they made near the altar, that is the position they would soon find themselves in real life. He wanted to get out of the room fast, but suddenly he heard a man say, I'll guard the room tonight. Martin froze in fear, knowing that he could not escape the room tonight. He could not believe that this altar is how they got their positions of power, all those people his sister was talking about. He tried to go to sleep, so just lay down on his back and rested his hands on his stomach. He eventually fell asleep. A few days later he was lying in the same position. It was lying in the coffin position. In a coffin. Dead. Thanks for watching The Assassin Rapper, and if you want to stay up to date on new content, then please subscribe and be sure to hit the bell to be notified on new content. Sarah was looking forward to watch a movie called The Last Night on Earth that she was lent by her sister. It seemed to be a great horror movie, which Sarah loved. Any horror movie was her type of movie. She loved the suspense and the thrill of what could happen next. Sarah's best friend Louise was calling over to watch the movie in about 30 minutes. Sarah decided to have a quick shower, so she left a note on the dining room table saying she was in the shower and won't be long. When Sarah was in the shower, she was humming to her favourite Guns N' Roses song, Paradise City. She had a habit of singing or humming in the shower. A few minutes later, there was a knock on the shower door. Sarah shouted, "Hi Louise, thanks for letting me know you're there. I'll be down in 2 minutes." When Sarah was out of the shower, she heard a car pull up in her drive. She was shocked when she looked out the window, realizing Louise had just pulled into her driveway. It hit her suddenly. If Louise was just after pulling into her driveway, then who had just knocked at the shower door? A cold shiver ran up her spine, and suddenly a figure dressed in black stood in front of her and said, "I hope you enjoyed your last night on Earth," and shot her dead. Thanks for watching The Assassin Rapper, and if you want to stay up to date on new content, then please subscribe and be sure to hit the bell to be notified on new content. Michael was searching for a place to stay in New York as he was offered a new job in Brooklyn. He was feeling disheartened as the more places he searched, the more he felt he couldn't afford anywhere as there was no place that met his budget. But suddenly, when he was just about to give up, something caught his eye. He had to read it twice to make sure he wasn't imagining it. There was an apartment in a building in Brooklyn, just a few blocks from where he was starting his job. He couldn't believe his luck, so he emailed the company right away, and a week later he moved in and was lying down on his bed smiling at the fact he had a place of his own in Brooklyn and was about to start a new job. He began to read a book and relax as he was starting work in a week. He was feeling tired and was about to go to sleep, so he laid the book down beside him on the bed. Then he suddenly got a start when something like a shadow moved on the wall in front of him. He looked around expecting to see someone that made the shadow, but no one was there. No one was in the room. The shadows began moving around the room. He couldn't make any sense of them. Michael found it very hard to go to sleep that night, but eventually he slipped into a deep sleep. The next night, the same thing happened. The next day he was walking down the street and past a street basketball court. He knew that the guys playing were looking at him strangely, so he asked, could he help them? One guy said to Michael, "You're that guy who moved into room 456 in the building right up the block, right?" Michael was surprised these strangers knew and replied, "Yes, how do you know that? And why do you ask?" The boy said, "Man, did you hear anything about that place? There's weird stuff happens there, that's all I'm saying." Michael was thinking about the boy's words, and instead of carrying on for his walk around the blocks like he usually did since he arrived in Brooklyn, he walked right back to his apartment. He opened his laptop and searched his address. He froze in horror when he saw a photo of a little boy and a man and woman on the screen. He guessed they were his parents. As he read on, he learned that the little boy was out playing one day when a Necronomicon book from H.P. Lovecraft was thrown out the window from stories above and hit the boy on the head. The boy suffered memory loss and trauma and was put into foster care, and his parents were found in the apartment with their bodies mutilated. There was no evidence of anyone in the apartment, and no conclusion as to what really happened to the boys' parents. Michael heard of H.P. Lovecraft before, and knew about his famous monster, Cthulhu. Then suddenly shivers ran up his spine, as he thought of the shadows going up and down the wall many times since he arrived in the apartment. They reminded him of what Cthulhu looks like, that he saw down through the years. He remembered when he was a kid reading comics, and the character was in loads of the pages in different forms of horror. Then suddenly Michael heard a noise, and he screamed when he saw a weird-looking monster in front of him, which, even though he couldn't believe his eyes, knew that it had to be Cthulhu. He screamed as the monster rushed for him, and as he backed back more and more, Michael fell through the glass, out the window, and fell on the ground, and was killed instantly. As he was falling to his death, his memory came back. It was always Cthulhu who was making sure of Michael's fate. Michael got his job in Brooklyn and found the apartment, and was drawn here by the spirit of Cthulhu, who hadn't finished him years ago. The curse only had power in the apartment. Just before he hit the ground, he had remembered he was that little boy in the photograph, so many years ago, that got knocked unconscious by the Necronomicon being thrown from his apartment. Now the job is done, and now Michael is gone. Jason was a kleptomaniac since as long back as he could remember. Ever since he could steal, he would. He remembers his mom used to get so mad at him when he was a small kid for stealing different items from his peers at school. His mother didn't experience anything else bad about his behaviour apart from the stealing, although there was one very distressing experience his little brother had when they were both small. They were in the woods and Jason stole his father's gun, and there was a dog that seemed lost. Jason used the gun to shoot the dog dead, and his brother started crying, but Jason just started laughing and said, "Come on, let's get out of here." Jason's brother Simon told his mom Susan, and she grounded Jason for almost a month. But when it came to stealing, he wasn't in the need for anything. He just had the impulse to steal as much as he could and as often as he could. If he was inside a restaurant, he would steal the knife and fork, and sometimes even plate, even though he had many more at home that he stole. He was caught a few times and even spent a few months behind bars when he was 21. He had counselling to try to stop his impulses to steal, but nothing worked. He kept stealing as much and often as he could. One time, he even stole from his own best friend. They were out for a drive. Jason's friend Jack stopped at a gas station to fill up. While his friend was inside paying, Jason stole his friend's phone and put it in a secret pocket in his bag. No one could find it there. As they were driving up a lonely road, they knew that they were in the back of the Beyonds, and there was no GPS in the car, so they were lost. Jack regretted driving so much out into the outback. Suddenly he was startled as a dog stood right in front of the car. The car swerved and crashed right into a tree. Jason got a flashback of years and years and years before when he shot the dog out in the woods. Jason was knocked unconscious and was in a very bad way. Jack tried to get his phone from where he left it on the car's dashboard, but could not find it. Jason was bleeding very badly and could not speak. Jason knew Jack's phone was in his secret pocket, but he could not manage to get the words out. Jack kept looking for his phone to call 911, knowing the paramedics would have to come in at least 5 or 10 minutes at most, or else he would be gone. He knew it was too late when he saw Jason go pale and the blood began to pour out of him even more. Jason died knowing his stealing finally caught up with him.